Hello and welcome to Myriad Plots. We are the West Coast feed of the No Ordinary Obsessions podcast. My name is Grace. I'm also Hestia Sputters on the No Ordinary Obsessions website. And Myriad Plots will be a conversation between me and Jason about all sorts of role-playing game, GM, and other game-related things, video games. Jason, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jason. I have the poster Darendelle on the blog. I'm also the GM that's often referred to in the normal No Ordinary Obsession podcasts.
And we're going to be talking today about using websites, creating websites for your role-playing games, and also player logs, GM logs, and how the internet can help us do that. And there's a lot of different types of logs. I know one of the most extensive that we've talked about before are called actual plays. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. So there's a spectrum of logs. At the very highest level, you have what are called actual plays, or APs. These are essentially transcriptions of typically actual voice recordings of a game, with some editing, because we don't want to include that digression about Monty Python or the latest movie.
But it'll read more like a short novel or
Yes.
or fiction.
Because you have all of that dialogue to take in, the description, everything that happens in the game.
Okay. And then, of course, you also have game logs, and one of the reasons we're talking about it is that you have quite a bit of experience in doing a game log as a GM.
Yes. I found it to be really useful in a lot of my games to include a log. That way, the players can refer back to that and understand what had happened. Because I play very plot-intensive games, and I also run a lot of very long games, a year or more.
More.
Yes. And those games, you may not remember perfectly because, there might be a 2 or 3 or 1 month gap, perhaps, between game sessions. You might forget some of that early stuff, which will come up in my games because I do these plot-heavy games. And so I find it really useful to have these tools there, because that way people can look back, they can see, oh, right, that's when we did X adventure. And I find my players actually really enjoy, just even apart from the reference aspect, just like going back and reading over those shared memories that we have.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's the same thing as, whenever you get a bunch of gamers together, they always talk about their character. Or if they've been in the same game, they talk about, oh, remember that time that we did such and such.
Yeah, but it's a great resource as a player in a game that's keeping a log to be able to go back, like you said. And because, while you might remember that really cool thing your character did, you don't necessarily remember, the plot point or why your character did that cool thing. And it could become useful later. And, of course, we'll talk briefly about the fact that we also sometimes will do character logs, and so it's up to the GM. Sometimes XP is offered for that, and I know I have enjoyed doing that either in the form of like a letter that my character wrote, or a personal journal or something like that. But that can help player get really get into the head of the
Oh, definitely,
character.
definitely. I've done that several times, and it's really helps you understand where the character is and why they're doing the things that they're doing.
Now, you're actually going to make some of your game logs available, and we're going to link to them when we post the podcast?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They're all publicly available already, but we'll make, and half of them are already linked on the website, but we'll put them in a nice central location.
Yeah, so can you give us sort of a little bit of a list? How did you start out? What was your first big game log?
Well, my very first game log was a character log, actually. Back in high school, I kept a character journal for my character. And the GM there had hundreds of characters, tons of plot, and it was just helpful to be able to have all those clues in one place.
Was that coincidentally the character named Darendelle?
No,
it wasn't.
No.
Oh, okay.
Darendelle did keep a log, but not quite as thorough as my character Cellwriter.
Okay.
After that, then in
and this was just a classic like handwritten log, or did you type it up?
Yes. I can show Grace right here. In fact, I have this little crumbly memo book.
Maybe I'll even post a picture of that when you post your vlog for this.
Yeah.
So, okay. And how about the internet? Using the internet as a resource?
Right. Well, I started doing that after college. I started a game which I typically refer to in my mind as the Law versus Chaos game. This is the same game that Mike from the other half of our podcast, and Jared and Alec, who at some point will also join us on the air, participated in.
Mm-hmm.
And for that one, this was using GeoCities, so I will not be posting a link to that. GeoCities is dead, but
yes.
I kept a log of just straight writing up what had happened in each session over the course of this weekly game for a year.
Mm-hmm.
I also included the various information on the specific characters that they met along the way.
Cool.
And that was really helpful for them because they could then look back and see, all right, right, this big bad evil guy, now we know, he's got a daughter, or he's secretly on our side, or something like that.
And so that was just a sort of matrix of interconnected, interlinked, simple HTML pages.
Yes. That was
right.
all really crude HTML.
Things that you could do nowadays on the internet, but thank God you don't actually have to. So what's the next step that you took?
The next step I took was actually sort of a step backward.
Oh, no. Sorry, go ahead.
I stepped backward to Google Documents.
Okay.
I mean, it was still easier than the earlier website, but it was cruder to look at. I mean, because you had these spreadsheets holding all the characters, and my log, I decided to take it a little bit easier. I was in grad school at the time, so I didn't want to spend a couple hours a week writing out these wordy logs. So I just went with a straight bullet point of events that had occurred in the game session.
But you still let the players have access to those,
yes.
to all of that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and the next step?
The next step, then I went to Google Sites, which is a lot simpler to manage. In a way, it's sort of similar to how GeoCities was,
right.
but with less dealing with HTML.
Well, it's sort of a simplified GUI, so
right,
that you can
exactly,
code anything that you need.
Which is nice and simple, and was good for my purposes, at least at the time.
Right.
And so I used that for my Promethean game, and I currently use it for my Mage game,
which has been pretty long running.
Yeah, we're 3 years in now.
How many logs have you generated for that game?
Last time I counted, which was over half a year ago, we had 47 sessions.
Okay, so that seems like a lot of work. Any other logs that you've done, or I can ask you about how much time you put in here?
Well, I've done a few other logs, but maybe we'll talk about those when we get to wikis.
All right.
In terms of time, the logs do take up a fair amount of time. Typically, I'm writing 2 or 3 pages of material for each log. It usually takes me, I would say, about 15-20 minutes to get the skeleton up. Of just getting all the all right, and so killed so and so. I might not even use full names. In the Mage game, each of the characters have a
different initial.
different initial. So it's like capital A, well, that's Adele. Capital V, that's Valkyrie.
Mm-hmm.
And so that simplifies things. If I have to deal with an NPC, I might do ATH, Athalia, or something like that.
All right. And you actually take some of those notes during the game, too.
Yeah.
Right?
It's useful because, I'm a very... I find that if I handwrite notes, I remember them a lot better than typing or thinking back later. For some reason, the paper right there, and remembering how I was writing things, it just clicks for me.
Okay.
And so that's my method for remembering how things went.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for a GM who wants to do a log but thinks that maybe taking notes during the game is going to slow him down?
I would first just try it out, see if you can remember back. If you can try and come up with that rough list within, say, a day.
Mm-hmm.
That usually helps me to remember enough of the log.
And of course, if you've done a lot of pre-work for your game, you might have some stuff that would help
if you. Like, I run a lot of White Wolf games, and so I've adopted the scene mentality. So in my notes, I have scene 1, or, well, I have a scene, I don't remember them, but it'll be this scene where, such and such happens, and I know that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I just do a little X on my notes as I'm going along, and so I can just reuse that material. If I did any descriptive text or put any crude notes in there, I can just immediately cut and paste. And then after that 15 or 20 minutes, just getting the notes in there, then it's just the slow process of turning your chicken scratch into something other people can read, like full sentences.
Right. And so since you've, over 3 years with one log or with one game anyway, about how long does it take you now that you kind of worked out your own rhythm and you have your own shorthand for your notes?
I take about an hour or two.
Okay, about an hour or two per session, per log,
session, yeah.
Okay. And what would you say about a GM who says, well, that's too much time, I'm going to have characters do it, I'm going to have the players do it, they'll do it for XP, what's your advice?
I would say that is wonderful if you can get players to do it. And I will also caution you that if you want your notes to be done, if you want your notes to be done well and, say, have the character's name spelt correctly, you will do a little bit of editing, but that will take a lot less time.
Yeah, certainly if you can't have one player who's going to commit that is trustworthy, not only to be there every single session, but to do a competent job typing. They'll probably be typing during the game.
Yes.
So you have to consider that. But if you can do that, then you have that one voice. And if you're going to start offering it to multiple, patchworking it, which is something I tried to do on, my only game that I've run that's gone to 3 or 4 sessions. And I had problems by that, 4th session getting, someone to say, oh yeah, I'll do the log. But there's a different voice, and different details are important to different people. So even though they are writing it as a log and a narrative form, it comes out a little bit, general.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's going to have their own style, and then they're going to look at different things. Some people will be more objective, others may focus on particular characters.
Yeah. So it seems to me like probably if you're going to be, especially if you're posting online, you as the GM are going to have to, if you want that log and you want it to be something that you can use too as a resource, after a year of playing, to go back and look at that first villain or something, that you should make sure you're at least going to set aside maybe half an hour per session to maintain that log, even if you do have some trustworthy players to write it.
I mean, getting back to the idea of remembering things, you could take the actual play route and just not transcribe, which, from what I've heard from other people who have done this, takes probably 3 or 4 times as much time as what I'm doing.
Yeah, are we going to provide a link to an actual play, just in case some listeners haven't?
Sure, I can link them to one of the best, David Broadshaw, freelance writer for White Wolf. He's done a series of excellent actual plays.
And so how do you know how long it takes him to do his actual plays?
A long time.
So you don't know how long?
No, not exactly, but I know it takes on the order of 8 or more hours.
Right. Okay, that is a long time.
Yes.
All right. So obviously, if you want player involvement, I think that's probably where you start to go into wikis being your best option.
Yes. I mean, you could do things with Google Sites. You could open it up to other people. I mean, you could do that with any site.
Mm-hmm.
But wikis I find to be really easy. They're very approachable. And so I've done a couple wikis thus far. The best one I've done, which we'll definitely be linking to because it has a nice log as well, is my Amber game. Amber is particularly well suited for this sort of thing because it's built. There is this built-in idea of player contributions for extra points.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just said you can add things to the website for every game session, and you will get 10% more character points.
Right, and I was a player in that game, and I really enjoyed that went the concept of that went beyond a written log, and also open it up to people who wanted to do drawings or artwork and then scan it in, or or do something like a photo manipulation type thing, and that was really cool too.
Oh,
I think
that was really awesome.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful site.
Well, I think you could extrapolate that to other game systems too.
Oh, definitely,
yeah.
Definitely.
So, is there anything about the wiki that you like beyond player contribution and the ease of the player contribution?
What I really like about the wiki is that it is really easy for me to do links. Mm-hmm. In Google Sites and similar sort of GUI interfaces, you have to highlight the where you want to do the link, find the page that you want to link to,
right. Mm-hmm.
and so forth.
Yeah, and heaven help you if you jumble the letters or you forget to put a quote in your HTML.
Right. Well, if you're doing HTML.
Some things, yeah.
But I mean, in Google Sites, I have to do a search, and then I have to. It takes me like 30 seconds or so to put a link in,
mm-hmm.
whereas with a wiki, it's the amount of time it takes me to do 6 square brackets.
Yeah. And it's useful as a player too, or if it's a multiple person who are multiple people who are contributing, that they can simply go in and they don't have to know for sure if someone's like, for example, maybe that there's a page that hasn't been created yet, but that this character or this world or this city is going to be important or might be important later on. You can put it in a link, and it creates a blank page that someone can then add to it.
Right.
Any other websites that might be useful for GMs looking to start a log?
Oh, there's a lot of wiki sites,
mm-hmm.
And I think most of them are pretty good.
Which ones have you used personally?
I've used Wikidot.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's Wikidot as a word .com.
So WIKIDOT.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's reasonably nice. I've had a lot of good success with that. There's also Obsidian Portal. I've not used that, but I've heard a lot of good things. And I'm looking into possibly using that in a future game.
And you can do a review for No Ordinary Sessions.
Yes.
All right. So, of all the types of logs that you've done, especially online, what would your what do you think the best way to go? Most customizable and the one that's worked best for you.
The best that's worked for me is probably the wiki.
Mm-hmm.
It's just easiest for. I mean, exactly how you said, where we can just have links waiting for me to add something about a particular character or a place mm-hmm. or object, and it just makes it a lot simpler to do that.
All right, well, we're getting close to the end of our time, but let's make sure that we kind of go over a little bit of the must-haves if you are going to create a website for your game, particularly with logs. Obviously, I think we both would recommend you include some kind of log, player log or character logs.
Yeah, logs are really the best reason to have a website. But there are a lot of other things to include as well. I mean, we've already mentioned characters. The ability for a player to go back and, when you mention so-and-so, and look back and see, oh, right, this was that guy that we dealt with here, and this is what we know about him.
I think it's become really useful in your mage game, your long-going mage game, and anyone checking these links later and looking at the NPC list will understand why.
Yes, in a longer game, you build characters. I think in any game I've had that's run a year, I've easily had over 100 characters.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you generate all that stuff? Like, when do you fill that in?
Well,
is it any extra work?
It usually is not much extra work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very descriptive when I'm building my characters. So I'll have a paragraph of description of what they look like, and usually a couple paragraphs of background.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I want to put that on the website, I just cut and paste, remove any background that
the players don't know about.
Yes. It's like, oh, he secretly works for the bad guy. Well, they don't know that yet.
Yeah.
So that line gets pulled out.
Right.
I might also put in any major mechanics that the characters would know about, like, oh, that he belongs to
associations.
Yeah, this vampire clan, or he knows this how to use this level of death magic.
Cool. All right. So we have logs. We have NPCs. What's something else that you think might be useful for?
I've included a lot of different things in my websites in the past.
Mm-hmm. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is probably resources for characters.
Okay.
So I run an online game for my mage game, and so one of the things I include is a link to a dice roller. That way we can all be looking at the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Another nice thing to include is a map.
Mm-hmm.
So for my D&D game, I have a map of the world and the city that they're in.
Yeah.
And I've also put in some of the dungeon maps as well. But also for my World of Darkness game, I have a map of Chicago that they can look at and they can see, oh, that's where our sanctum is.
And I liked that you used like Google Maps for that.
Yeah.
Because it was sort of real world, and that's one of the nice things about running, a World of Darkness campaign. I know I actually had dreams of having a online map for my Xena game that I ran, and I actually uploaded a whole map of Greece and hyperlinked everything, figured out how to do an image map and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, and, and I used the book, but it was a lot of work, and it was... So I was very sad when that game did not go longer than 4 sessions.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah, okay, so cool. We got maps and resources, and I'm assuming like rules for house rules for player builds.
Any house rules, anything that's any mechanical things that have come up in game.
Mm-hmm.
So again, going to my mage game, some characters have come up with their own spells, so those are up there. Mm-hmm. There's a custom legacy that we've built in game, and similar things like that.
Cool.
And it's also nice if you're particularly after a game is ended, you can put up things like details on any monsters or characters that you've come up with, just to share with the world and show everyone, hey, this is that cool thing that I came up with.
Well, cool. I think that about does it. Do you have anything else to share about websites and logs for games?
I think that just about covers it.
All right. Well, this has been Grace and Jason with Myriad Plots, your West Coast feed for No Ordinary Obsessions.
Thank you for listening to our show. Please visit our website at noordinaryobsession.com, where you'll find show notes from this and other podcasts, along with our blog and Twitter feed. This has been a production of No Ordinary Media, all material copyright unless otherwise noted. As always, be kind to us and subscribe to our feeds. Good night.